Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a pretty fundamental concept in Islam, Tawheed.
Oh, yeah, Tawheed.
You might have heard of Islam,
Right,
but Tawheed may be new to you.
absolutely.
So we're using excerpts today from the Unparalleled Oneness of Allah
Okay.
to understand what it means,
Right.
why it matters, and how it really shapes the lives of Muslims. And it's not just this abstract idea,
Yeah.
it's a principle that influences everything from everyday actions to
Right.
your ultimate purpose in life.
Absolutely. And this is a beautiful deep dive because we're going to be looking at something that's very profound and practical.
Okay, so are you ready to explore?
Yeah, let's dive in. I think the best place to start is with a quote
Okay.
by Ibn al-Qayyim, who said, "In the heart there's a void that can't be filled except with the company of Allah. And in it there's a sadness that can't be removed except with the happiness of knowing Allah and being true to Him.
Uh.
If a person were given all the world and what's in it, it would not fill this emptiness."
Wow. That's, everyone can relate to that feeling.
Yes.
Regardless of your beliefs.
Absolutely.
Of searching for something more.
That void.
Yeah, to fill that void. So in Islam, Tawheed offers a way to address that.
Yes.
So at its core, Tawheed means...
The oneness of Allah,
Okay.
which is the Islamic concept of God.
Yeah.
But it's not just about acknowledging that there is one God.
So it's deeper than just monotheism.
Yeah, it's about understanding Allah's absolute uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
He has no partners, no equals, and no rivals.
So there's no sharing the stage here.
Yeah, none at all.
Okay.
Nothing is like him.
So right from the start,
Right.
we're seeing how Tawheed elevates Allah and emphasizes his unique position as,
Absolutely.
the foundation.
Yes, it's the cornerstone. It's the very first part of the Shahada,
Oh,
which
okay.
is the Islamic declaration of faith. There is no God worthy of worship except Allah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard that before.
You probably have.
But I've never really connected it to this deeper concept of Tawheed.
Yeah. And there's a hadith,
Okay.
a saying from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him,
Right.
that whoever dies knowing that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah will enter paradise.
Wow. So it's not just a concept,
Yeah.
it's a matter of eternal significance.
Absolutely.
But how do you really grasp the essence of Tawheed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there is a chapter in the Quran called Surah Al-Ikhlas,
Okay.
which means the chapter of sincerity. And it really sums up Tawheed perfectly.
Okay, so let's break down Surah Al-Ikhlas.
Okay.
What does it tell us about Allah?
So the first verse says, "Say affirm me. He is Allah to one."
Okay.
Right away is emphasizing his absolute oneness.
Okay.
It's drawing a very clear line. There is no other deity.
No sharing the stage.
Yeah. So what comes next?
I'm curious, what's next?
So the next verse describes Allah as Allah, the eternal refuge. And what that shows is his self-sufficiency. He needs nothing, while everything relies on him for existence. That to me, it reminds me of the saying, "To whom do you turn when the refuge itself needs refuge?"
Oh, wow. That's deep.
Yeah.
It makes you realize just how completely everything depends on Allah.
Absolutely. And it gets even more specific. The next verse says, "He neither begets nor is born."
Okay.
And that right there is rejecting any notion of Allah having children or parents. He is entirely unique and distinct from any human qualities.
He's incomparable.
And that's what the last verse says. Nor is there to him any equivalent. This is the culmination of Tawheed. Allah is absolutely incomparable. There's nothing else like him in existence.
That's a profound statement. It really sets Allah apart and highlights just how unique Tawheed is.
And you know what's really fascinating is that when you look at other monotheistic faiths,
Mm-hmm.
they also grapple with this idea of the divine being beyond human comprehension. That he is unlike anything that we can even fathom.
It's very interesting, right? This idea of a divine being that's so beyond our grasp, it seems to resonate across different beliefs. But we've focused a lot on the theological side of Tawheed.
Right.
So how does this profound concept translate into a believer's daily life?
That's a great question. I think we should explore that further. And this idea of a divine being that's beyond our full understanding, I think that's something that resonates across many different faiths. But you're right. We've been focusing on the theoretical. How does Tawheed actually play out in the life of a Muslim?
Yeah.
That's where it gets really interesting. It's not just a belief you hold. It's a guiding principle that impacts every single aspect of a Muslim's life.
So it's not just about what you believe in your head, but about how you live your life.
Absolutely.
Can you give me some specific examples of how that works in practice?
So if you think about the 5 pillars of Islam,
Yeah.
which are the core practices that shape a Muslim's life.
Right.
Prayer, fasting during Ramadan,
Yeah.
charity, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and the declaration of faith, which we talked about, all of them come from that belief in the oneness of Allah
Okay.
and are seen as acts of submission to him.
Right. I'm familiar with those.
Right.
But how do they connect to Tawhid? It's easy to just see them as just rituals.
Yeah, they're not just empty rituals. They're expressions of Tawhid. Take prayer, for example,
Yeah.
5 times a day.
Yeah, right.
It's not just going through the motions. It's about acknowledging Allah's greatness,
Uh-huh.
seeking his guidance, and asking for his forgiveness. It's about cultivating a state of awareness, a direct connection with Allah.
So it's not about checking things off a list.
Yeah, it's not a to-do list.
Yeah.
It's really about embodying that connection.
Through action.
Through action, yeah. And the same goes for fasting during Ramadan. It's not just about abstaining from food and drink. It's about purifying the heart, strengthening your willpower, and developing empathy for those less fortunate than yourself.
Aligning your actions.
Exactly.
For-
With this principle of Tawhid. And it's about living Tawhid. This concept of aligning your actions with Allah's will goes beyond the 5 pillars. It touches every part of life, from small everyday choices to the big life-altering decisions.
Okay, so give me an example. How does Tawhid guide those choices, big or small?
So let's take, for example, Islamic finance.
Okay.
Tawhid leads to the prohibition of practices like usury, which is charging excessive interest or engaging in excessive risk-taking, because it's seen as going against Allah, who has absolute ownership and control over everything.
So Tawhid even has implications for how economic and financial systems work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It provides a moral compass for how wealth and resources are used. And it goes even further. If you look at Islamic art and architecture,
Yeah.
often you see an emphasis on geometric patterns and calligraphy, which reflects the order and beauty of creation and points towards the transcendence of Allah.
So who knew that one principle could influence so many different aspects of like life and culture?
That's the power of Tawhid.
Yeah.
It's not just a theological concept.
Yeah.
It's a worldview. It's a way of understanding your place in the universe and your relationship with the divine.
So you're saying it takes a lot of awareness,
Yes.
constant effort to align your thoughts,
Yes.
your actions,
Right.
and even your artistic expressions
Nice.
with this principle.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong journey of learning, purifying your heart, and striving to live in harmony with Allah's will. And it's a journey that leads to genuine fulfillment and happiness both in this life and the next.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. From the theological basis of Tawhid to its practical implications in so many areas of life, and I still feel like there's so much more to uncover.
There always is with Tawhid. It's a concept that you can spend a lifetime studying and reflecting on.
Yeah.
And each person's journey of understanding and embodying this principle is going to be unique.
Absolutely. So where do we even begin to wrap our heads around something so vast and profound?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What's like the one thing that you really want our listeners to take away from our discussion?
I think the most important thing is to approach Tawhid with humility
Okay.
and an open mind. It challenges us to really expand our understanding of the divine
Yeah.
and to acknowledge our own limitations.
It's a reminder that we are not at the center of everything, but part of something much greater than ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that realization can be both humbling and liberating. It can free us from the trap of ego and help us find true peace and contentment in our connection with the divine.
That's beautiful. As we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Tawhid, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay?
If Tawhid teaches us that true fulfillment comes from connecting with something greater than ourselves, what does that something greater look like for you personally? Is it a personal God, a sense of purpose, a connection to nature, or something else entirely? What brings you a sense of transcendence and meaning in your life?
That's such a great question to reflect on, and I think the answer will be different for everyone. The important thing is to keep asking that question,
Yeah.
to keep searching for that connection with something beyond ourselves that brings us true fulfillment.
Well said. Be sure to join us for part 3, where we'll conclude our deep dive into Tawhid. We'll explore the challenges and rewards of living a life centered around this profound principle, and we'll also talk about how Tawhid can inspire us to live more meaningful and purposeful lives, regardless of our individual beliefs or backgrounds.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Okay.
We've been talking all about Tawhid, this really powerful Islamic principle of Allah's oneness.
Right.
We've talked about what it means, how central it is to Islam, and how it impacts the lives of believers. But like putting such a profound belief into practice, That can't always be easy, right?
You're absolutely right. Living a life that's truly aligned with Tawhid takes consistent effort. It takes a lot of self-awareness and a willingness to confront your own ego and desires.
Yeah. So what are some of the hurdles that people might face when they're trying to live by Tawhid?
One of the biggest temptations, I think, is prioritizing worldly achievements over spiritual growth.
Right.
We live in a world that values material success, status, immediate gratification.
Yeah. And it's really tough to resist those pressures and stay focused on the deeper principles of Tawhid.
Yeah, it's that struggle, right?
Yeah.
Between
Yeah.
our lower desires,
Our lower
those
desires.
higher aspirations.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also the challenge of grappling with doubt and uncertainty.
Right.
Faith isn't always a straight path. And, everybody has moments of questioning
Yeah.
and struggle, especially in a world that's bombarded with information and conflicting viewpoints.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? How do you hold on to Tawhid when those doubts start to creep in?
Well, that's where I think the importance of seeking knowledge and engaging in sincere reflection comes in. Because Tawhid is not about blind faith.
Okay.
It encourages critical thinking and a deep understanding. It's about wrestling with those tough questions and searching for answers.
So it's about actively engaging
Yes.
with your faith, engaging and not shying away from those.
Not at all.
It's difficult.
The difficult parts. And, through that process of learning and questioning and reflecting, your faith can actually become stronger
Oh, wow.
and more resilient.
Okay.
It's like a muscle that you're training.
Okay. That makes sense. But, we've talked a lot about the challenges.
Yeah.
What about the rewards of living a life guided by Tawhid?
So, in Islam, the ultimate reward is drawing closer to Allah and attaining salvation in the afterlife.
Right.
But there are deep rewards that can be experienced
In this life?
right here, right now.
Like what? What are those tangible benefits?
Well, for one, Tawhid provides an incredible sense of purpose and meaning.
Okay.
When you recognize that, your life isn't just about your own pursuits,
Yeah.
that you're part of something bigger,
Yeah.
you tap into a much deeper sense of fulfillment and satisfaction.
It's not all about you anymore.
It's not just about you anymore. It's about connecting to something beyond yourself.
Yeah.
A sense of belonging to something greater. And that connection can bring such a profound sense of peace and tranquility, even amidst all of life's ups and downs.
It's interesting how that idea resonates with so many different spiritual and philosophical traditions, like the importance of transcending the ego, connecting with something larger than ourselves, whether it's a divine being, nature, humanity as a whole. It just seems to be like a universal human yearning.
Absolutely. And Tawhid, with its focus on the oneness of Allah and the interconnectedness of creation, offers a powerful framework for nurturing that sense of connection and transcendence.
So even for those who don't identify as Muslim, Tawhid can offer
Absolutely.
valuable insights.
It can inspire us all to live more meaningful and purposeful lives, to cultivate humility and gratitude, and to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every being.
That's a powerful message to end on.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Tawhid, I want to leave everyone with one final question. How can the concept of Tawhid, this idea of oneness and connection, how can it inspire you to live a more fulfilling, more purposeful, more connected life? What does it mean to you to recognize the oneness of all things and to live in harmony with a higher purpose? And, take some time to reflect on those questions, because I think the answers that you find will have a profound impact on your life.
Absolutely.
And on the world around you. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Tawhid. It's been a real pleasure exploring this topic with you today, and we hope you'll continue to join us as we explore more fascinating topics on the deep dive.
It's been an honor.